As the country reopens, parents heading back to work are asking how and when will their kids go back to school. Under the White House reopening guidelines, states can choose to open some businesses in phase 1, but they cannot open schools until phase 2. Schools in 48 states and Washington, D.C. are closed for the remainder of the academic year, but educators are already looking ahead to plans for the fall. However, a recent ABC News poll found more than 2/3 of Americans said they are not currently willing to send their child back to school.
I would not feel comfortable sending my kids to school right now or go to camp because of, there's no vaccine.
President Trump said earlier this month that young people do well with the virus, but now health experts say some children are suffering from potentially COVID-related inflammatory disease. Private Christian schools are gearing up for fewer students and bigger financial challenges this fall. A survey of close to 800 schools in late April found that new student inquiries are down and many have ended or cut back on their fundraising campaigns during the pandemic. And joining us now with more is Dr. Lynn Swanner, the Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer at the Colorado-based Association of Christian Schools International. It works with 2,400 member schools in the U.S. in addition to schools around the world. Dr. Swanner, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Heather, for having me.
This survey that you did, it gives a snapshot of where Christian schools are at. And talk about what perhaps is the good news first. How have private Christian schools been able to adapt, basically just quickly transitioning to online learning during this pandemic?
And the good news is that our schools responded very nimbly and swiftly. So we had about 1/3 of our schools didn't even miss a beat. They transitioned to distance learning literally overnight. And then 80% of our schools missed less than 5 days of instruction due to their physical campuses being closed. So we saw our schools transitioning very quickly to online learning, to distance learning, and they did so with great quality and fidelity. So the survey found out that our schools were still offering things like electives and physical education, music and arts, our Bible classes. So again, they transitioned quickly, but still providing a very comprehensive educational experience for their students. So that's the good news.
Right. And I want to ask you, the Brookings Institution is forecasting that severe financial challenges for private schools will likely result in some closures. Your survey shows that new student inquiries are down. How concerned are you about these trends?
Well, I think schools in all sectors, private as well as public, are concerned about the future. You talked about the poll that came out. There's another USA Today poll that came out today that said 1/3 of parents are very likely to pursue at-home learning options instead of sending their children to a physical campus in the fall. And so one of the things that Christian schools are doing that the survey showed was they're developing hybrid and online learning programs right now as we speak to take the really nimble responses that they developed this spring and institutionalize them to offer parents more options into the fall. So nearly half of our schools are even looking at this as a permanent option that they would offer to families. It increases access to Christian education for families that haven't been able to access it before. So I think our schools are working to recast this as an opportunity and not just as a challenge.
What are some of the innovative things that you are seeing schools do when it comes to learning online in these hybrid models?
So our schools are using a wide variety of online distance learning tools, and they're doing so, again, with great fidelity as to the quality that they're used to offering to their students. So certainly teachers are using things like Google Classroom, they're using Zoom and other video conferencing platforms. Many of our schools already have online learning management systems, which enable them to be very nimble and provide personalized learning and feedback to students. So I think many of our schools are finding that the technology investments they've made over the last few years, just as a part of keeping in touch with trends in education, are serving them very well in this new environment.
Well, I know there's a lot of people that want to see Christian schools succeed. Dr. Lynn Swanner, thanks for your time.
Thanks so much for having me, Heather.